Right, time to speak to the Conservatives. And I'm joined now by the Shadow Home Office Minister and Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, Matt Vickers. A very good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us. As we sit here and snapshot the kind of small boat crossings expected to be confirmed today that 50,000 have crossed during the current government, is it an issue that you as a party understand is incredibly hard to tackle?
I think, well, it is a challenge to tackle, but actually what we've seen, we know that previous governments failed to get those numbers down as much as we'd like, but there was progress being made. The last government was reducing the number of people staying in hotels. We did have a deterrent scheme in place, and we were working towards what could be done on that front. And actually, of these people arriving illegally, we were removing more of them than the current government. But actually, those numbers today, 50,000, the problem is we've become slightly immune to this because all we talk about is these big numbers, but that represents a 51%. The number of people arriving in this country up 51%. That is huge. That's not sustainable. We can't carry on like that. It's a huge cost to the taxpayer. It's a huge cost to communities across the country who have these people rocking up in hotels disappearing for town centres to be filled with huge groups of lone men. We can't go on like this. And the only way to stop it is for people who break into this country, who arrive illegally, to know that they will not be allowed to stay.
We've got a chart we were just showing. I don't quite know how it's 51% higher than last year, but it's obviously
51% on the year. Year on year is up 51%. That is huge.
What number is that? Year to date crossings?
The year
We've
to
got
date.
the chart of year to date crossings. Let's bring it up again.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can see this, but 2025 is obviously elevated on 2024, but it's not 51% higher.
It's up 51% on the year. If you look at how many people have arrived in the year versus the previous year, it's up 51%.
Okay. Well, anyway, there is the chart, and no doubt it's higher. And year to date, it's a record, and 50,000 will be crossed later today. I'm interested that you framed the back end of the Conservative government as you're making progress. I mean, is this not something that ultimately you need to draw a line under and say, we failed on this? If there was a little bit of progress around the edges, that's all that it was?
Kemi has conceded that previous governments let the side down. Immigration was way too high. She wasn't the leader. I wasn't a minister. But the reality is it's so much worse. It's not a little bit worse. It's up 51%. It's huge. That's a huge impact for communities like Epping now, who are seeing what that means, what it means for people's concerns about their welfare and the security in their public spaces, what it means for the taxpayer and the huge cost of this ever increasing number. But the reality is this shouldn't have been a surprise. When in opposition, Keir Starmer voted against every single measure brought forward to toughen up our immigration system. This is a guy who campaigned against the deportation of foreign criminals. Of course, when you give him the keys to the car, when you let this guy run our country and take control of our border system, this is what happens. The guy has changed the law to ensure that people who arrive here illegally, people who break into this country, can go on to become British citizens. He's been in there and ripped out all of the legislation that was put in place to allow us to deport these people who arrive illegally. The only way to end this is to put a deterrent in place and for those people to know that if they come to this country, they will be detained and they will be removed. That is the only way to solve this problem.
I mean, I guess, again, compare. I know you weren't personally a minister, but I don't know how many people you actually detained and deported. And obviously the Rwanda plan was talked about and discussed and brewed for many years and led to one flight or whatever it was that actually took off. I guess the key question here is, can you understand as a party, whether you're a new minister or shadow minister or not, why people are turning to reform on this issue?
I think the scheme hadn't started. I think it's a really big issue, but you actually need solutions. You know, when I'm in there looking at bills, amending bills, we brought forward amendments to the bill, to the government's nationality and border bill that would have seen us disapply the Human Rights Act, so we didn't end up with these court cases in the courts logged down and these people, chicken nugget gate and all this ridiculous saga. We said that we would disapply the Human Rights Act on those things. We would change the law to do something about it. We also put that scheme in place, the Rwanda scheme. We fought with all these lefty lawyers. We fought with the Labour Party who constantly voted against it. We tried to physically do something about it. Anybody can go out there and tweet. Anybody can go on to broadcast and tell you all the wonderful things they may or may not do. But it's about what you're actually going to do. You've got to have a real plan. You've got to get amongst it and make it happen. It's all well and good saying what you could do. The reality is you've got to get on and do it and find a way to change the law to make it happen. If there is a Conservative government put in place, we will deport these people. We will use that scheme. We will use the powers that were put in legislation before the election.
But you're pointing to the Rwanda plan as something that was a piece of actual action from you. More Home Secretaries went to Rwanda.
It hadn't started.
Deported as...
It hadn't started.
I know. And you're saying it was something you actually did. It was announced 2.5 years before the last election.
You know
yes, it was...
We saw the
but why are you pointing to that as something that you successfully actually did?
That's why we have said we need to disapply the Human Rights Act. The courts tied this thing up. You watched it, Wilf. You reported on it every single day. The carry-on of these lefty lawyers doing everything they could to stop the will of the British people and of the elected parliament that was put forward by people to solve this problem. We've now gone completely the other way. Numbers up by 51%. We're allowing people who arrive here illegally to become British citizens. It's taken out all the legislation that was in place that forced people who arrived illegally to undergo age verification so we could prevent 30-year-olds being sat in classrooms with 13-year-olds. It's going completely the wrong way. It's sending completely the wrong message to the globe. Those people knew what was going to happen. They knew they were going to be... It's the only way to solve it. The only way to solve it is to tell people who arrive here illegally, you're going home. If we don't do that, those people who should be in Rwanda now, where do you think they are? They're in Romford, they're in Redcar, they're in Richmond. It's ridiculous. We need to get these people out of the country. You can't be allowed to stay if you break into the United Kingdom.
So, some of those things you say may be fair, but at the same point, you know, government is about action, and that policy was talked about for many years, and obviously was successfully blocked, and you failed to deliver it in an effective way before you lost power.
Their action has been to remove all of that legislation that will allow us to deport people. It's removed the legislation.
Fine, but that's a different point. You were criticising
their direction of travel, and that's why the numbers are up 51.
That's fine. But you were criticising them for lack of action and pointing to the Rwanda plan as something that you did as action, and that was where this last 5 minutes came from. Let's just move on, if we can, quickly, because I wanted to talk about what your leader, Kemi Badenoch, was saying in Epping yesterday. And she raised this, I think, more as a question than as an explicit statement, but raised the idea that asylum seekers should be housed in camps that are policed as opposed to in hotels. Can you expand a little bit more on what the thinking is there?
So rightly, so Kemi went down to Epping. She met the families, the community, people who were affected by this, people who daren't send their kids down the park or let them play in the street, women who were worried about going home late at night in the dark, people who are really affected by these huge groups of lone men hanging around town centres and public spaces. She's also seen the impact on businesses. I've been to Altrincham, where about 300 hotel rooms were taken out of circulation. And I've seen the impact that has on the local community. Not only are these groups of men hanging around town centres, but all those local businesses, those hospitality businesses, the retail businesses that people have put their lives into creating jobs, creating economic growth in their local community. Those people are now really suffering. If you take away those 300 hotel rooms, the businesses that rely on that tourism all of a sudden do not have any business. Devastating for those communities. But more than that, it's devastating for the British taxpayer who is funding this entire thing. The only way to solve this problem is A, to end the pull factors and all of the things that make these people think that coming to Britain, the easy touch is a winner. But moreover, we need to make sure that if you arrive in this country illegally, you are not allowed to stay. That is the only way to stop this situation.
So camps that are policed is not a Conservative policy at this point?
We're looking at, nothing is being taken off the table. We'd started in office looking at disused army barracks that could be made available for this purpose. Having them in the middle of town centres, having these huge numbers of people arriving has real consequences. If we can find better solutions that include the camps that Kemi's looked at as suggested or put forward as an option, that's the right thing to do. We need to look at all the options. But the reality is we need to stop them coming first and foremost by sending people back.
Matt Vickers, thanks for joining us.